Let's study the meaning of a static member in C++ class. So if I declare one of the member, either private or public, as a static, and then say integer id gen, like that, then the meaning of static is quite different from those members without the static. So it is as follows. So here, if I create a bank account object, like a bank account object B1, then out of this structure, we understand that memory is allocated or storage is reserved for a variable named the B1, and the internal structure of the B1 is you have an integer called ID, the double called the balance, as you can see those members, and then another some complex structure of person class called the owner, and then you have a pointer where you can hold the address of a person class type. So that's the structure, but you will never ever see id gen of int type inside the B1. That's the purpose of a static. So if you declare static, this member does not belong to any object of a bank account class. So if I create bank account B2, then memory is reserved or created for a variable named B2, and this internal structure will be exactly the same as a B1. So you have ID, balance, and the owner, and the pointer. But ID gen of integer variable will never appear in any of those bank account objects. But it will be created in a very special area of the computer memory called the heap area. Actually, those variables are created called something called the stack area of the memory. But on another special area, heap area of the memory, that variable id gen of int type is created here. Variable is int type of variable. Name is id gen is created, which is completely outside of any bank account object. And you can have access to this one even without creating any bank account object at all. So that is static. So static members are static variable or static functions. You can declare that static members do not belong to any object. And then object, another terminology in object-oriented programming is also called the instance. So instance means object or variable of class type. So the members without the static is called the instance member. Instance member. Because those one without the static, those one without static appears in each object. Object is instance. That's why we call that instance member. But the ones, the members with the keyword static is called class member instead of instance member. So class member means that those members do not appear in any instances of a bank account class, any object of a bank account class, but it is created just once for just one copy for all class objects, and then it is placed in separate area, not any of object area. And then this could be accessed from outside, and then since you have this is just only one single copy for any number of bank accounts, so it is shared by all objects later. So what I mean by shared is that, for example, ID is instance member, so ID of a B1 and ID of a B2 are separated, are completely different. But ID gen is a static class member, so it is shared by all objects. That's the meaning there. So let's write some program, and then let me show you what I mean by that. So let me clean the screen there. So here, if I define a member as a static, then you need to do another declaration in .cpp file. Here's .h file, you define static idgen, then in .cpp file outside any member functions, typically what we do at the very top, and then just define again, it's an integer type, and then it belongs to bank account class, colon like a member function, and then give the variable name, and then optionally you can give an initial value for that. It is a gen id. That's what I used in .h file. So id gen. Okay. So the variable name is id gen. So in .h, you define a variable as static. Then in .cpp file, you need to give a type int, same as one, then a variable name, idgen. Prior to that, you give a class name for which class this variable belongs to. Like member functions, you give a class name, colon, class name, colon. Same way, class name, colon, and then give a initial value. So at the start of the program, idgen becomes 0. So here, for testing purpose, let me move this declaration as a public so that it could be accessed from outside. So in main program, let me now recover those ones. And then here, I can print out the cout, the idgen variable, which is static one here. Then how do I have access outside the main bank account class? I'm going to access the idgen of a bank account. Then how do I refer to that is a class name, colon, idgen in DL. So then I have access to that. So let me move this one on the very top before I create any bank account object. And then let's see if idgen is available. It is initialized to 0, and it is public so that I can have access to that outside bank account. But if I move this declaration as a private, then of course I will have error, because it is private, means access is limited within the class only, but I'm having access outside, which is main function, so it's this error. So let me move it back to here, and then error is gone. Then let me compile, and then let's run it. Then here 0 appears, which is idgen. So for testing purpose, if I give a 5, compile the program, and then run again, then 5 shows up. So as you can see, before I create any object of a bank account, that static member or class member, non-instance member is available, then you have to use a class name, colon, and the like. So let me move it back to private, because I'm going to use as a private purpose, and then this one is error. So what's the typical use of a static or class member like this is then? Then that is when you create the bank account object. So in main program, I have 3 bank account objects are created. I want to assign the ID automatically beginning with a 0. Next one is 1, 2. So in this example code, I've assigned ID manually all -1, but I don't want to just assign ID manually, but I want to generate automatically. Then we should have some reference. Every time I create a bank account object, I need to look up how many bank accounts have created so far. Based on that, I can assign unique ID. And then the static or class member serves that. Since this one does not belong to any object, but is outside all object, and that is shared by all object. So in a constructor, instead of assigning ID -1, there what I can do is I can assign ID from ID gen, and then after that I increment ID gen. Then at the very beginning, let's begin with the 0. Then 0 is assigned, and then ID gen is incremented, and now it's a 1. So whenever bank account is created, 1 will be assigned, and then it will be incremented to 2, and the like. But bank account object could be created by default constructor or those two constructors. So let's give the same thing. So ID is from ID gen, static variable. The ID initialization is taken out. After that, we can increment 1. So similarly, we could do the third constructor we have. Then like that. So ID is uniquely generated by this mechanism, having a static variable called the class member. Then utilizing that, it is uniquely generated. So let's compile the program and then set the breakpoint here. Debugger, let's launch it, and the ID is automatically generated there. So B1, B2, B3, it's not initialized yet, so ID is meaningless at this moment. Step over, then B1 gets ID 0. Step over, now B2 gets ID 1, automatically assigned. Step over, now B3 gets ID 2, and the like. So ID is automatically generated by the static member. So inside the B1, as you can see, there is a member ID, member is balance, member owner, owner has intern name and age, and then P joint owner is there. But there is no ID gen within B1 or within B2 and the like, because ID gen is a class member declared static. It does not belong to any of those. But if you want to know current value of ID gen, go to the debugger console, then we can print the value bank account class name colon ID gen. Then it will show you currently 3. It has been used 0, 1, 2, and then it is incremented there, so it's ready for the next number to be used, the like. And then we can give one final professional style of the programming. Instead of doing two separate lines, we can give a post increment like that. Post increment means a current value is assigned and then incremented, so we get the same result. But this is looking more professional style. So here, post increment, and delete that, and give a post increment there. Then compile the program. The program should work fine like that.